Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Dashy is officially on the bench now at OpTic Texas, and one of the big questions that remains, where is he actually going to go next? Octane believes it's going to be far from easy though to get him to go anywhere, because the buyout fee from OpTic might be massive, but which teams might be interested, especially if they underperform at Major 2. Very much intrigued to your thoughts down below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Loads of new subs the last few days, rocketing towards 92k. Just absolutely love to see it. This is kind of uncalled for here, but that's not right, but pretty funny nonetheless, I thought. So quickly, just on from the COD League themselves, it's only 3 more days as of today until we're back in action officially and the matches begin. Now, OpTic, in fairness, thankfully for them at least, they have another couple of days of scrims because they're obviously, you know, brand new team, they're new to it. In fairness, they've got some great existing chemistry there. We know that Shotzzy said their first scrim against London or whoever it was, we'll see in a second, went very well indeed. But nonetheless, these are the games, just to give you guys a quick preview of the upcoming weekends. Some interesting ones for sure. Of course, Friday, I'm looking forward to seeing how Seattle get on, and also just the start for Boston, because there are certainly some teams playing on Friday that are a potential target for Dashy down the line. Saturday is absolutely fantastic, to be honest. We've got the new LAG in action, we've got FaZe Seattle, we've got LA Thieves New York, that's a cracking one, and then Sunday we've got the LA Guerrillas derby, which is Drazah versus Hicksy, which is exciting if you guys know the storyline from a couple of years ago there, and then, you know, OpTic versus Boston, of course, with their first match of the year, with, of course, a brand new roster, well, partially brand new roster, with Huke now back on the team. We've been discussing the last day or so whether this is a good move, whether it's going to work out long term. It's a low risk move to some extent as well. They could get Huke easily, they don't have to bear a massive buyout from him or anything. It makes sense in terms of his existing chemistry there, and also their record together is kind of crazy. I thought a really interesting stat here that Brian Stats pointed out, that these 3 guys have, of course, as a trio, have teamed up during the Modern Warfare season. Of course, realistically, it was only that season and briefly at Major 1 during Cold War, but they teamed during that time with Clay and Crim. Then at the start of Cold War, they teamed with Crim, and now they're teamed with Scump. So in terms of a trio, kind of, you know, in terms of 3 teammates to have as a trio, it's probably not too bad, right? Having Crim, Clay, and Scump as the only guys that these 3 as a package deal have ever teamed with before, which kind of goes to show how highly they're regarded. But, you know, will it be the same story nowadays like it was a couple of years ago? OpTic are certainly hoping so, but of course, Pred was still their #1 target, and we'll discuss that a little bit more later on today. The other part of this, of course, just to mention, is that apparently OpTic scrims last night were either, well, they were up against Rokkr and London Royal Ravens, so I'm pretty sure there's 5 hardpoint maps right and 3 control maps, so that is 8 maps in total, so the 6-2 map counts what would be correct here. So they played these 2 guys last night, and they went 6-2 at least in one of the scrum sets, so not sure who that was against. We don't really know how London are getting on. Okay, we hear rumours every team says their practice is going well. The London team is also relatively new as well. They've got Scraps in instead of Paul X. If it was 6-2 against Rokkr, that's pretty impressive. If it's 6-2 against London, you know, still reasonably impressive, but nonetheless, it's only scrims at the end of the day. But early days look rather exciting on the OpTic side, and therefore that does raise the question down the line, what's going to happen with Dashy? Because I think Shotzzy did say on stream that, you know, he can't rule out the possibility of Dashy returning to OpTic's starting lineup, just because, let's say, iLLeY is just terrible at main AR. I don't think he will be, but if he is, and there's no other options out there, would they say, you know what, Dashy, let's just, you know, run it back and you become our main AR instead? I think that's a lot of the criticisms the fans have, is like, well, you know, you didn't really have a proper main AR, why not keep Dashy instead of iLLeY in that sense? Now, obviously, there's a good reason why they've done that, and we discussed that in the last 24 hours or so in the videos that we have done, but nonetheless, it's a question that will be raised, and I think Shotzzy I mean, look, Shotzzy said on stream, something had to change in the team, and Dashy was the one to get dropped. So he basically just outright implied that Dashy was the problem there, and I don't think Dashy's going to be returning. I think that if Dashy wants to come back, it's got to be on a new team. Surely his run at OpTic is now over. He's had his chances, it's not worked out, and they've got to try something different. Now, quickly on this, just discussing the sniper role, because we know iLLeY has been running the sniper, and I do think that there's been an element of, when iLLeY has been on the sniper, it's taken away some of the aggression they actually have. I mean, the Scump's been out of control on this one, to be fair. I don't think Scump will be running it. I think iLLeY will still be using it. But just now that iLLeY's on the main AR role, technically, or the slower AR role of the 2, and they've still got Scump, Huke, and Shotzzy, I think it is going to improve their search and destroy game, just because we know that iLLeY, when he was on the sniper, often because you got iLLeY on the sniper, you've then got Dashy playing relatively slow as well. It just slowed their team down too much, especially when he pulled it out on offense. Now, if iLLeY wants to snipe on defense or offense or whatever, he's still got 3 more aggressive players alongside him to actually still take map control and stuff. So I think iLLeY will still use it, but maybe Scump's putting in a good claim right here in this clip. And also Shotzzy was, I don't know, like, this guy's just instigating or whatever they call it, about not knowing what the OpTic Dynasty was. I don't know if he actually doesn't know what the OpTic Dynasty was, or whether he was, you know, just playing Halo during that time. I mean, look, thank God this guy is good at cards, because That's all I'm going to say on that one. But nonetheless, Shotzzy was discussing Dashy last night, and others have been discussing Dashy as well. Where's he going to go next? What teams might be interested? But also, can they get him easily? We know that Pred was not accessible. We know that Arcitys was not accessible because the teams in question said, you know what, we're going to want an awful lot of money. And even if you do give us an awful lot of money, we still might say no. I think even the number they were discussing on the flank for Pred was something in the ballpark of, I think Zuma said between $500,000 and $1 million for the buyout. So we're talking like, let's just say 750K for Pred's buyout. And Seattle said no. I mean, you know, fair play to Seattle. I guess they feel like they don't need the money, which is fair enough. And think they're going to get more benefit than that money by keeping Pred for the rest of the season. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But regardless, would OpTic ask a similar amount for Dashy? I doubt it. Obviously, he's a bench player right nowadays. So they could get him. But, you know, would OpTic hold them to a massive buyout if a team wants him after Major 2? Or would they say, you know what, you can kind of not have him for free, but at least help Dashy along with his move, right? Because we did see a few years ago now when the Huntsman days were in effect and Arcitys decided, you know what, he wants to go to Atlanta FaZe, be the main AR over there. Hex said, you know what, Arcitys, you've been a good servant to the team. Like, basically, they let him go for free, which is a bit of a surprise. But nonetheless, I wouldn't be surprised at all if, look, Hex is a businessman and now he's partnered up with Envy. It might be a different story from that perspective, but I'm sure he wants to do right by his players, especially a guy like Dashy who's been around for years.
Top 3 teams Dashy could be on after Major 2. Boston's interesting, maybe Seattle, depending on placing. Teams like Florida, London, Vegas are willing to spend. If Brandon, yeah. Could you imagine that Seattle approaches OpTic for Brandon? How much money would Seattle have to toss out in order to get Brandon off of OpTic? Because if they said no for Pred, how much cash would have to be involved in this? It would have to be wild. It would have to be absolutely insane. Just out of like pure pettiness, right? Just out of sheer pettiness, it would have to be insane. You guys think Bruce will end up on a team or no? You think he like just sticks it out for this season?
I don't know. I guess it depends.
I wonder what he does.
Who, Bruce?
Yeah.
It's also like if you're him, like what do you want to do?
Yeah, so like OpTic's like best case scenario for
like,
him, but
like
being on the bench is not.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, like, do you join like an underperforming team that is trying to like make champs or something, or do you just wait it out and then?
I mean, there's gonna be teams that want
switch
him.
up for next year.
Like, I think that the best case scenario is he walks onto a team that like he would make the team like championship caliber.
Well, of course. I mean, if he has that, if he has that opportunity, of course.
So there are teams that are like that. I feel like I wonder like how long it's gonna take for him to get like offers and stuff. I'm curious.
I mean, probably after Major 2.
Like, yeah, probably. Well, I don't even think it'll be Major 2, bro. I think it might be qualifiers.
Maybe.
But Octane believes, right? I mean, looking at some of the teams that might want him, Seattle, maybe Boston, we'll see in a second, would, you know, the OpTic guys hold them to a big buyout to get Dashy off the team? Because, look, Dashy as a sub player is not exactly bad, or as a substitute player is not exactly a bad player to have sitting on your bench, right? Just in case anything was required. He subbed in successfully in the past a few years ago in OGLA, if you guys remember that World Championship match they had. But would he get held to a massive buyout? What do you think Hex would do now? Because Hex of a few years ago, no problem at all. But that was the Huntsman days. Maybe now with Hastro in charge as well on the Envy side, it's a slightly different story. I'm sure they'd want something, but at the same time, I'm sure Hex and the guys want to do right by Dashy as well. Obviously, he's been on their team for almost 5 years now. Like, since 2018 he joined, so it kind of is 5 years. In some respects, right, 4 and a bit years for sure. Won a couple of championships with the organization. I don't think they're necessarily going to hold him in contract jail if another organization is like, look, we want to buy Dashy, but we can't pay 300k for a buyout. We can pay 100k or, you know, whatever they decide to do if they want Dashy. Now, the question is, which organization might or might not want Dashy? First of all, the FaZe thing. Again, people talk about FaZe. I just don't see this as being a reality. There's been some rumors as well that FaZe have been looking rather good in scrims the last few days after the new spawn update. We'll see if that translates into success this major. In fairness, there has been a bit of discussion, as Chris's hitter points out, between Dashy and Cellium right here, and a bit of back and forth. So look, these guys get on. Whether FaZe see Dashy as a viable candidate to replace Slasher, let's say if they continue underperforming, I don't think so. They could have done it in the offseason. They were apparently never interested in that. They wanted more of a leadership character, a veteran player. So I can understand that FaZe probably wouldn't want him yet. Maybe down the line, but I think for now, FaZe are going to hold off on a move like that, especially if they're actually pretty good. There's a couple of key teams that I am looking at going into Major 2. Really what I'm looking for here is teams that played badly in Major 1, and if they have a bad Major 2, will feel like they've got to make a change. These are Boston for sure. I would say the Florida Mutineers as well. Not so sure about Vegas, to be honest, especially given money and stuff. London maybe, but kind of doubtful. And then you go down to a team like Minnesota as well, I think is a possibility, and maybe Surge. So I would say there's like 4 teams that after Major 2, depending on how it goes, could consider a guy like Dashy. And it feels like every time I'm talking about Methods in Boston here, but it just feels like it's got to be discussed to at least some degree, that clearly on Boston, there is pressure on those AR players in Methods and Awakening, right? Like those Nero and Vivid, they've been there, they're the SMGs, that's how it's going to be. But Boston's ARs have to deal with Beans absolutely throwing in challenges on their bench, and Dashy is now a free agent and available to go, or at least a restricted free agent on the OpTic side. Added into that, Boston came top 16 at Major 1, have not been looking so good since the M4 got GA'd, so, you know, there are some questions there, right? And if you're Boston, you've got to be keeping your eye on the fact that Dash is available. Now, look, at the end of the day, replacing Methods with either Dashy or Beans, I don't know if it really works, just because, you know, where does the leadership come from? You've got Nero, Vivid, and Awakening, all guys that, yeah, I don't know about Awakening's comms. Okay, Vivid comms a bit, but I don't know, there's no real veteran leader there. I kind of like how Methods rounds out that team, but, you know, nonetheless, if Methods isn't performing individually, then I'm sure they're going to look at Beans and, of course, Dashy. Now, they might go for Beans first, right? Because I guess why wouldn't you? The EU Dashy, but also with Dashy available, potentially, that's a question mark there. Florida as well is a possibility, but then again, you've also got to think what Dashy wants, right? This guy is on the bench for OpTic. He could wait to the end of the season. We believe his contract runs out at the end of the season. So at the end of the 2023 season, after the World Championship, which happens in like middle to end of June, it's really early this year because they started the season so early, but didn't add any more events, unfortunately, pretty much. So anyway, Dashy's contract ends not too long from now. So at the end of this season, he can go wherever he wants for free. So I don't think he's going to be rushing into a team that isn't going to perform so well. For example, Mutineers, they're not going to offer him the salaries on an OpTic. The same thing happened to Asim, right? Asim got the Mutineers offer at the end of last season. He turned it down, stayed on LAG's bench, and now has got a chance on London, right? I don't think that even if Florida wanted Dashy, he would be like, yeah, sure, let's play for Florida because they're going to pay him less money. He's then going to be stuck on another contract, whereas he's a free agent at the end of the season. So I think it's also partly what Dashy wants here, and I don't think he's going to join a team that he doesn't believe has, let's just say, you know, championship Sunday potential at the very least. I think Boston does, if that was to be an offer. The one that I'm more interested in, to be honest, is either Rokkr or Surge. Now, Surge to me is a little bit strange just because I can't imagine Dashy makes any sense there. Like, accuracy is not going to go anywhere. I know people have talked about this, but the only way I think that happens is if the team decides to blow it up, Surge anyway, and then, you know, maybe Sib goes somewhere else, and maybe there's an option there. Just, you know, accuracy for Dashy doesn't make any sense. There's a whole reason why they kept accuracy in the first place, to mesh that team leadership stuff. Dropping accuracy for Dashy, like, I don't think makes that team better. I don't really think that makes much sense. So the one that kind of stands out to me there is Rokkr, right? They had a bad performance at Major 1. They came, what, top 8. Afro was frying, but everyone else was kind of mid. And I feel like, okay, there's an argument that maybe Bance will be the first one to get it traded out, and Attach has been good. But Cammy, admittedly, has been kind of underwhelming. I think there is a world in which, you know, Dashy in for Cammy might actually make sense there. You've still got the leadership from the rest of the team. Attach can maybe step back into more of a flex role, like Dashy and Attach as the ARs I kind of like, and then, you know, Bance or maybe some other SMG as the SMGs alongside Afro. That could work. So I think that Rokkr, they've got the money, they've got the resources, they certainly have what it takes to make a move like that happen if they feel like it should happen. I don't know if dropping Cammy is the right idea at all, or maybe dropping Attach, who knows. But if they have a bad Major 2, that is the team that I'd probably be keeping my eyes on, because I can imagine that Dashy would, you know, probably want to go there, and they might have the willingness to make that move happen. But definitely tweet your thoughts down below. Would Hex and the OpTic guys hold him in contract jail, or will we get another Insight situation, what happened in Cold War, where a player like Methods is, you know, dropped for a guy like Insight, and Dashy can come through again? Because, like, it's tough to be a main AR in this league, especially when there's guys like Dashy out there as free agents wanting a spot very quickly indeed. Just a couple of things to close out the video with. Thought this is kind of crazy actually from Brian's stats as well. With OpTic's recent move, Huke is now Scump's 31st teammate in his 13-year career. That's actually an incredible small number. I'm pretty sure Parasite has probably been on 31 teams in his career, probably more than that, actually probably way more than that, to be honest. And Clayster, for example, has had 59 teammates in his 14 years. So it kind of shows that, okay, Clay went team hopping a lot, or not team hopping necessarily, but, you know, he was getting dropped, picked up by new teams. That's how it has been for Clayster. But maybe that's like a more reasonable number you might expect for a career of that length, the fact that Scump's team with so few players really is actually quite impressive because he's been on, you know, great teams for such a long period of time and also generally likes the guys that he's teaming with. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, take care, and I'll see you next time.